Ahoy there, my children of the watch. Welcome to Star Wars Transmission's weekly Q&A. Doing things a little differently. We are rocking the Q&A on a Saturday, but we've got some really excellent questions that I am excited to dive into. So what do you say? Let's get into them. So for our first question, Princess Leia Organa asks, do you think Tech is still alive? Oh boy. Can we talk about this for a second? Can we take a moment to pour one out for our boy Tech? Because good God, was this past week of the Bad Batch just absolutely grueling. Like, the season finale of the Bad Batch completely wrecked me. I was an absolute wreck watching that episode. It was freaking grueling. So at one point, I had already watched both episodes of the Bad Batch, and Danielle had not watched them yet. So she was watching them. I was doing something in the kitchen, and I could hear the music and I could hear what was happening in the episode from the kitchen. And just hearing the music, knowing that our boy Tech was going to presumably plummet to his freaking death, just absolutely crushed me. Like, I started tearing up in my kitchen just from the music alone. Like, watching that episode for the first time absolutely crushed me. I was crying like a freaking baby. It was so awful. It was grueling, but at the same time, like, that is excellent Star Wars storytelling. And I'm sure if you're watching this, if you're a fan of the YouTube channel, I probably don't have to tell you that you should be watching Star Wars cartoons. But man, if you're not watching Star Wars cartoons, you're missing out on some really excellent Star Wars. You're missing out on some of my favorite and some of the best Star Wars storytelling. It's really great, and the Bad Batch is a perfect example of that. Like I said, that episode was just absolutely grueling. Anyway, on to Princess Leia Organa's question. So, when it comes to the Star Wars universe, I need to see receipts, man. I need to see receipts before I'm willing to say definitively that, hey, this character is dead. This character isn't coming back. Because we've seen time and time again a character that we thought died only to come back. Echo is a perfect example of that. We all assumed Echo was dead, and then here's our boy returning in season 7 of the Clone Wars. Maul is another great example. Now, Maul is a little bit different because he used the Force to keep himself alive. But Tech is a perfect example. We all thought Tech had died, but we didn't see his body, and he was able to come back. So until we get definitive information that our boy Tech is dead, I'm going to hold out hope. I'm going to hold out hope that there is a chance he might still be alive. Because the only proof that we received from that episode that he's dead, aside from him plummeting from that height, was at towards the end of the episode when Dr. Hemlock finds the Bad Batch on Ord Mantell is the planet they're on. Yeah, Ord Mantell. When he finds them on Ord Mantell, he gives Hunter Tech's pair of goggles and tells Hunter, hey, this is all we found of Tech. Now, again, he didn't say he found a body, so you would think even though Tech fell from such a great height that there would be some sort of semblance of his body still left over. So maybe there's a chance he could survive that, but I think the chances of Tech surviving that fall are probably slim. That's a very high fall that he fell from, and the likelihood that he probably survives from that seems almost next to impossible. It's not entirely impossible. It's not impossible, but I think it's pretty close. It's pretty close to impossible that he winds up surviving. But let's also remember our boy is super resourceful, right? Tech is this. We're talking about tech, right? So he could potentially have some sort of gadget on hand, a weapon, a piece of equipment, something that he could use to save his life. I mean, we saw that they had that, like, I don't know what the piece of equipment was, but they hooked it up to their blasters to be able to connect to that that train or trolley, whatever it was. So who's to say? And you could see, right? He's got all this utility belt here. Who knows what other gadgets he could potentially have in that belt that could potentially allow him to survive that fall. Even if it's another one of those like grapple hook sort of things that he could use to shoot, and even if it's into a tree, something to maybe soften that fall. And again, because we didn't see his body, I'm holding out hope that our boy's still alive. I'm gonna go into next season with the assumption that he's dead, because I don't want to go into season 3 with the idea that, hey, Tech absolutely survived. I know it, and then we come to find out that, yeah, he's dead. So I'm going to say that I think he survived. I think there's a chance. I think the chances that he survived are slim, but I think he might be dead. I should have known. I said this to Danielle. I should have frickin' known, because we get the scene in the beginning of the previous episode, where Fee is flirting with Tech and basically telling him, like, hey, don't go off with any smugglers or pirates. You got to come back to me. I should have known right there. I should have known right then and there that, oh my God, this is the end of Tech. And we've seen multiple times in the season with the writers setting up the kind of preparing us for the idea that Tech may wind up dying. I remember back in episode 2 of the season when they're on Sereno, I told Danielle when we were watching the episode, at one point in the end of the episode, Tech is like pinned down behind a tree. And I thought, oh my God, is Tech going to be killed? So I think we've been getting some hints dropping throughout the season that Tech wasn't going to make it, which is a bummer. So that's usually like the kiss of death in a lot, not just Star Wars, but in a lot of like television and movies. When you get that goodbye from someone, usually that does not bode well for that character. But so I'm holding out hope that Tech might be alive, but I think he might be dead. Strauss Kraus, welcome to the chat. So Strauss says, absolutely, Tech is alive. It's rare that a character dies and they don't show the body. Yeah, that's my thing. Kraus does mention Mace specifically, although I will say there is a, the Star Wars Galactic Atlas. There is a reference book that specifically states, and it's a canon reference book that specifically states that Mace Windu is dead. So we didn't see Mace die on screen, but in canon, it has been stated that Mace died. Outside of that, though, again, I need to see receipts in the Star Wars galaxy when it comes to determining whether or not a character survives. But again, I think there's a slim chance that Tech survived this. Doing Duh says, Tech got so much development this season. I hope they don't just throw it away. That's the one thing that kills me too. Tech really got to shine this season, had a lot of spectacular moments. And now I wonder, in retrospect, did they do that to crush us even that much more at the end of the season? Had Tech died at the end of season 1, I don't know if I would have been as crushed if he died, because he didn't get as much development or character development as he did this season. So I think, yeah, the character development that he got this season definitely makes Tech's death that much more of a tough pill to swallow. So the Servant King Samuel Jackson stated that Mace lives. Don't care what Samuel Jackson has to say. That to me is either Lucasfilm retconned that reference book, or someone from Lucasfilm says that Mace Windu is dead. Because, like I said, in canon, it's the Galactic Atlas. I believe it's the Galactic Atlas. It's a reference book that states Mace Windu is absolutely dead in the current canon. Damien says, do you think we will ever see any Jedi helping out the clones the next season of the Bad Batch? I would love to see Cal Kestis. I think that would be great. Although the timelines wouldn't line up. Maybe if we get further into the story of the Bad Batch, because Cal's story takes place in 14 BBY, I believe, in Jedi Fallen Order. It's 5 years after Order 66, which takes place in 19 BBY. And the Bad Batch is currently taking place as well in 19 BBY. We might be getting in closer towards like 18 BBY at this point in time. So Cal's story is not lining up, but I would love to see Cal make an appearance outside of video games. But like I said, the timelines might not line up. It would be some other Jedi who survived during this time. So we know that Kanan is still around, Obi-Wan, but Obi-Wan's going to be in hiding. Yoda, who else has survived? Eth Koth is still around at this point. Vader kills Eth Koth in the Charles Soule Darth Vader comic, but I think that was, I don't believe it was in 19 BBY that he killed Eth Koth. We still don't know what's going on with Quinlan Voss. So there are definitely still some Jedi around, and we already saw Gunji in season 2. So I would love to see some more Jedi. Ahsoka, I'm completely forgetting about Ahsoka. Ahsoka is around. So yeah, I would love for the Bad Batch to team up with some Jedi that might still be around. I think Ahsoka could absolutely be someone that we could see, especially because we know Rex is still a part of this story. Rex, I'm assuming, probably has some sort of dialogue going with Ahsoka during this time period. So Ahsoka could absolutely be someone. But yeah, any one of those Jedi, I think, could possibly be characters that we could see next season. My thought is that next season is going to be Hunter, Echo, Wrecker. They're going to be working with Rex and some other clones to try to find Dr. Hemlock and Mount Tantus, because right now they don't know, where Omega is. So they're going to need help to try to find Omega. So I would imagine they're going to be leaning on Rex, other clones, and maybe that's how we could potentially get a Jedi into the story, which I think would be really cool. Give me anytime we can get some Jedi into the story, I am all about it. So Damien says, do you think Obi-Wan would help out with the Bad Batch? Probably not. I think that would be the likelihood of that happening would be very slim. He is currently on Tatooine, and I think his focus is Luke at this point. So I don't think there's going to be anything that would get him off of Tatooine. I mean, even in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, we saw how much it took for Obi-Wan to eventually leave Tatooine. So yeah, I don't think Obi-Wan would wind up helping out the Bad Batch. But I'm just saying there's the possibility because he is around, although I think that would be very unlikely. All right, let's move on to the next question. Damien, my boy, this question comes from you. So Damien asks, where do you think the next Star Wars celebration is going to be in 2025? So Celebration Europe is starting, I believe, next week. I think it's next weekend. It's either next weekend or the weekend after. I wasn't going to be able to go. I haven't gone to a celebration yet, but I definitely wasn't going to be able to travel to Europe for celebration, which is a bummer. But I think a safe bet for Celebration 2025, because there's going to be a break. There's not going to be a celebration in 2024. My thought is that the next celebration after this year is probably going to be in California or in Florida. So either Anaheim or Orlando. I think if I were to put money on it, that's where I would guess the next celebration is going to be at after 2023. As I mentioned, I've never gone to Celebration before. I am dying to go to Celebration. Danielle and I are both big into going to conventions and cosplaying, and we've never been able to make it to a Celebration. So, as someone that is like dying to go to Celebration, I am praying to the maker that we get a Celebration at New York City. Like, I still can't believe that there have not been there hasn't been a celebration held in New York City. And New York Comic Con is humongous, and where they hold the New York Comic Con in New York City is at the Javits Center, and it's huge. It is so big, and there's plenty of space to house everyone that would be in attendance for celebration. I live in New York, so for me and Danielle, that would be a hop, skip, and a jump away for us to get there. And it would be very much doable for us to be able to go to a celebration in New York City. So that's like, I'm hoping at some point we get something on the East Coast outside of Florida, because I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think all the East Coast celebrations have just been held in Orlando. So they've been in Florida, they've been in Chicago, I think Indianapolis and Illinois, Anaheim, London now twice, but no New York City, which again, New York City is one of like the biggest cities in the world. And it's kind of wild to me that there hasn't been a celebration held in New York City yet. So yeah, I'm gonna say that I hope that celebration would come to New York City, if not in 2025, at some point after that, not too long after that. But my thought is that it's probably going to be held in Orlando or Anaheim, because 2025 is going to be the 10-year anniversary of The Force Awakens and the 20-year anniversary of Revenge of the Sith. Guys, I remember going to see Revenge of the Sith with my buddies. I was in college at the time. I remember it like it was yesterday. I cannot believe that was freaking almost 20 years ago. Like, wild. But yeah, so I think because it's going to be those are pretty big anniversaries for two films, I think that it's going to be held in California or Florida. That would be my thought. But yeah, I am going to say that, or I'm going to be selfish here and say that I want a celebration to come to New York City. So let's pray to the Maker that it winds up happening. So Servant King asks, which Jedi do you think are most likely to show up? I'm assuming your question is referring to the Bad Batch. So yeah, I think if there were to be some other Jedi, it would probably wind up being, and I could be wrong, my thought would be Jedi that we've seen in the Clone Wars, just because it might be easier for the creators to use the assets that they use, the art assets that they used for the Clone Wars. So I could see, I think it would be so dope if we could get Quinlan Vos, because we don't know what happened to Quinlan Vos. After Order 66, we have no clue what's happened to Quinlan Vos, and many people, including myself, speculated that, hey, maybe Quinlan Vos might appear in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series when we were the run up to that show. That, hey, maybe we can get some information about Quinlan Vos. And then especially when we found out about the path, that, hey, maybe Quinlan has a part in that group. So I would love to see Quinlan Vos, but if I had to bet, my thought would be Ahsoka. Ahsoka seems like the most likely character that could appear, because they've got the art assets for her. It would be very easy. The Ahsoka series at that point, if let's say the Bad Batch drops right around the same time it dropped this year, I think Ahsoka is dropping like around when Andor dropped. So I want to say the end of summer, beginning of fall. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it would make sense if we go, let's say, from Ahsoka then to the Bad Batch. That would be a good segue into bringing her back into the canon storylines. So Ahsoka seems very much like a character that I could see being in the Bad Batch. She's someone that I think would be most likely to appear in the Bad Batch. All right, let's move and groove. So Rabbles, the Binks production, asks, who the crap retrofitted and reprograms the protocol droid 000 for torture? I love this question so much because I love 000 and BT1. I love these two droids so much. Let's make that a little bit larger. So when I am trying to get questions for the Q&A, I'll post in the YouTube's community page. Hey, basically drop your questions down in the comments below. And for basically the entirety of doing the Q&A, was only using my boy Ian McDiarmid in Darth Sidious, like the makeup, wearing sunglasses. That was the only image I was using. And then I was like, let's switch it up a little bit. And I love Dr. Aphra. That's one of my favorite Star Wars comics currently, is the Dr. Aphra series. And even before that, when it was written by, it wasn't Kieran Gillen. Who the heck wrote? Was it Kieran Gillen? Maybe it was. I can't remember who wrote Dr. Aphra before Melissa Wong. But I love Dr. Aphra, and I love 000 and BT1. They are excellent, excellent characters. And I got a bunch of people saying, like, what the heck is with these droids? What's their deal? And if you're not a comic reader, you're not going to know who these characters are, because they've only appeared in Dr. Aphra at this point. So these are my two homeboys on vacation. They got to, well, I shouldn't say vacation. I'll explain what's going on here. So if you're unfamiliar with these two characters, so 000 is right, you see right here on the right. BT1 is over here on the left. And they both characters first appeared and have only appeared. Have they only appeared in Dr. Aphra? They may have appeared in Darth Vader. They might have appeared in the Darth Vader comic series as well, but primarily it's been Dr. Aphra. 000 is a protocol droid designed to specialize in etiquette, customs, translations, and torture. Like, that's the weird Star Wars that I am here for, guys. So an unknown number of years before the Battle of Yavin, the 000 protocol personality matrix was accidentally created by a scientist. So basically 000's like personality was created by mistake by the scientists, and the scientists realized, holy crap, this personality is psychotic. I need to destroy this as soon as possible, because this could be very problematic. Before the personality matrix could be destroyed, 000 took control of the scientist's lab droid assistant, and 000 took control of the droid's body and was able to then escape. A century after that, so about 100 years after that, our homeboy Wat Tambor. You remember Wat Tambor from Revenge of the Sith. He appeared in the Clone Wars. He was the head of the Techno Union. He acquired the 000 protocol personality matrix and then became obsessed with it. He too eventually realized that, holy crap, this thing is psychotic, and was terrified of it, and then brought it to one of the quarantine worlds, Quarantine World 3. So in Star Wars, there are several different quarantine worlds, and these are worlds where, hey, something that we need to quarantine, we're just going to put it on this planet and leave it there. So in the 2016 to 2019 Star Wars comic series, there was these like bugs that were in part of that comic series run. Those bugs were originally, they were supposed to be kept on a quarantine planet. And of course, freaking Dr. Aphra took it off world. And I think, was it the Screaming Citadel arc? I can't remember exactly. But yeah, so there's a couple of different quarantine worlds within the Star Wars galaxy, and 000's personality matrix gets dumped there by Wat Tambor and then is left there. BT1 is so that's BT1 right here. Homicidal assassin droid created by the Galactic Empire's Tarkin Initiative, and they came to call this type of prototype droid a blastomech. And this astromech was designed basically to fool people, to think for people to assume, hey, this is just a regular old astromech, it's not going to be able to hurt me, so that it could be able to get into places where it wouldn't have access to, and then could kill people. But after it was created, BT killed the staff of the base that it was created on, set the base to self-destruct, and then jettisoned himself into space. Like, I love these two, the story of these two. It's just so ridiculous and awesome. I love it. Dr. Aphra then found BT-1. She could not reactivate him because BT-1 could only speak a specific type of languages, R&D language, that the droid was programmed to understand. She couldn't speak it. She didn't have a droid that could speak it. So she finds BT-1, but she couldn't reboot him, basically. She couldn't reactivate him. The droid Gotra, which is basically a crime syndicate made up of droids, they hired Dr. Aphra to recover both the 000 protocol personality matrix and the BT-1 assassin droid. So she was hired by the droid Gotra to find them. Once she found since she had BT-1, I should say, in her possession already, she traveled to the quarantine world that the 000 personality matrix was on, acquired it. Vader then enlisted her services to help him with building his own secret droid army. So he wanted to build an army that Sidious would have no clue about, and he wanted it to be all droids. And so he actually helped Dr. Aphra unlock 000's personality and install it into a 3PO series protocol droid. So that's why you see 000 in this protocol droid body. And then from there, 000 and BT were programmed. They were imprinted with the idea that Aphra and Vader were their masters. And so they went on to serve Aphra for a time. They eventually blackmailed her into setting them free. And then they led a large criminal syndicate. They continued to blackmail Aphra, and they forced her to work for them in their criminal syndicate. Eventually, Aphra wound up betraying Darth Vader and she kept the location of the Rebel Alliance Hoth base from him. And after that, she then stashed BT-1 and 000 on the planet Biruk. I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce the name of that planet. And that's where we run into them in the most recent Dr. Aphra comic series. And that's where these two images are from. So both images are from the current Dr. Aphra. Some characters in that story are trying to locate Dr. Aphra, and they're kind of like going to all these places that they think Dr. Aphra might be. One of them is this planet, and they find out when they travel to this planet, a bunch of people have been murdered, and so they see just a dead body strewn all over the place. And then this is where we see BT and 111. Aphra promised them a vacation. So that's why you see he's got this like scarf around his neck. BT's got the hat on his head. It's so dope. I cannot recommend Dr. Aphra enough. I love Dr. Aphra so much. It's kooky, it's funny, it's weird. It's got some really great lore dumps in there and great bits of lore information. You get information about like ancient Sith in the current comic, Aphra comic run. It's just an excellent story. I cannot recommend Dr. Aphra enough. It's one of those comic series that I look forward to each month because it's a ton of fun. A lot of times there's like humor in the story too. I find myself really enjoying those issues. So yeah, BT-1, 000, they are excellent characters. And yeah, if you like what I'm the story that I'm sharing with you guys about these two droids, you would definitely like Dr. Aphra's comic. All right, so let's move on to our next question. So this one comes from Underwolf, who asks, if someone can become one with the dark side like Darth Vader and become stronger, then what happens to a Jedi when they become one with the light side of the Force? So let's make this a little bit bigger. I wouldn't necessarily say that Darth Vader becomes one with the dark side. In canon, it's been mentioned that his Darth Vader's loss to Obi-Wan, the injuries that he sustained, basically perfected his spirit in becoming this absolute beast of a Darksider. and allowed him to strengthen his connection to the Force. And in the canon novel Lords of the Sith, they discuss how Vader's injuries, his burns, his armor made him far stronger than he ever was as a Jedi, right? So that physical pain that he was enduring, the emotional pain that he was enduring, all of that allowed him to perfect his connection with the dark side. So this all led to Vader becoming an insanely powerful Sith Lord and a dark side user. So I wouldn't necessarily say that he's one with the dark side. I would say that his connection to the Force at that point, the dark side of the Force, I should say, was just on another level. Him and Sidious are just on another level when it comes to their connection to the dark side of the Force. And basically, as far as like strongest dark side Force users ever, 1A is probably Sidious, 1B is probably Vader. Sidious is probably stronger, I would say, than Vader. But still, Vader is like insanely strong in the dark side of the Force. So what would the opposite of that look like? What would the opposite be for a light side user that is very, very in tune with the light side of the Force, is very connected to the light side of the Force? And I think the Jedi that would probably be the best examples are going to be Yoda, Obi-Wan, specifically after the downfall of the Jedi Order, not during the years of the Republic, specifically after the Jedi have fallen. I think Luke is another great example of that. And then potentially some Jedi from the High Republic. I want to see more from the High Republic with some of these Jedis before I say definitively, yeah, Avar Kriss or Elzar Mann or Stellan Gios, which I'm not going to spoil anything. But for those of you that know, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not ready to say that the High Republic Jedi yet are going to be like super, super connected to the light side of the Force, more so than Yoda or Obi-Wan are, or Luke. So I'm going to say for right now, Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Luke, those are probably going to be three of the like strongest light side Force users. I believe, I'm trying to remember if Underwolf's question might have mentioned Mace Windu. My thing with Mace is such a chump, and Mace's like dogmatic views of the Force and the light side and what it meant to be a Jedi, I think hindered him. I think if he took a little bit more of a liberal approach and a more laid back approach to how the Jedi should operate and what that would mean for your connection to the Force, I think Mace Windu would also be up there, because Mace Windu was also another insanely strong light side Force user. But I think as far as what we know right now for canon, I'm sticking with Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Luke. So specifically, again, after the fall of the Jedi, because I think before the Jedi, Obi-Wan and Yoda as well, their views on the Force and the Jedi, I also think kind of hindered them. Their dogmatic approach to how they did things, I think, hindered them a little bit. You could Bull Run, my boy, what's going on? He mentions Ahsoka. I could see Ahsoka as well. Ahsoka, I want to see more from her. I want to know more about her story before I'm willing to say, yeah, definitely Ahsoka. But yeah, Ahsoka, you could say, is someone that could also be considered as someone that is very attuned to the light side of the Force and would be a very, very strong light side Force user. So I think once you become connected to the light side of the Force in a way that some of these Jedi that we're talking about are, your abilities, you're able to manifest abilities or be able to tap into the Force and utilize abilities that a lot of other Jedi are not going to be able to do, or a lot of other light side Force wielders are not going to be able to do. And they're going to be able to utilize those Force techniques much more strongly, much more easily than others would. So kind of like same sort of thing with Darth Vader, right? Darth Vader is super strong, and his connection to the Force is going to allow him to tap into powers that some others might not be able to. Say it likewise with Darth Sidious, right? Their strength in their Force and their connection to the Force allow them to tap into Force powers or Force abilities that some might not be able to do so. I'm sure I'm going to get heat for this. I'm sure I'm going to get people disagreeing with me. One of my favorite things about The Last Jedi, and one of the things that I love about it, and one of my favorite moments from the movie, is Luke's use of Force projection. That to me, so first let me explain a little bit about that technique. So Force projection in canon is a very rare Force ability. It's extremely difficult to do. The user had to be in a very strong state of concentration and deep in focus. And because of that, it was very, very rare for Force users to be able to master that technique. You had to be strong in the Force. Your connection to the light side of the Force had to be strong. Your ability to be focused and concentrating on what you do had to be very, very strong. So all of that made it a very rare Force ability. And on top of that, to me, Luke's use of Force projection completely and perfectly exemplifies what it means to be a Jedi and how a Jedi should react in situations. And this is one of the things that I love. It's funny. I'm reading. I'm currently dabbling with some of the Old Republic comics, specifically like companion comics to the Star Wars: The Old Republic video game that I never read before, and it never dawned on me that because I think part of it is because I see this a lot in comments of my videos, people ragging on the Jedi prior to Order 66, saying how flawed they were. They were terrible. They did stupid things, and yes, I agree to that to some extent. But you could say that one of the issues that I'm currently having with reading these Old Republic comics is, hey, these Jedi are basically doing the same things that we dunk on the Jedi during the Clone Wars for. They're quick to get into conflict. They're quick to use violence to resolve issues. And I say that because one of the things that I absolutely love about the High Republic is their emphasis, the Jedi's emphasis during that time period in not using violence, on violence being the absolute last resort in handling situations, and only using your lightsaber as a last resort effort, which again is completely different from what I'm experiencing with the SWTOR comics. And I say that because Luke's use of Force projection to me is like a perfect example of what it means to be a Jedi. He used that ability to distract Kylo Ren to give the First Order, or excuse me, not the First Order, the Resistance the chance to escape. He did not use any violence whatsoever, and he sacrificed himself. Like, again, that to me is a complete personification and exemplification of what it means to be a Jedi and what the actions of a Jedi look like, and someone that is a true Jedi. I've mentioned this before, like when I was younger, I loved Luke. As I got older, I was like, yeah, Luke kind of sucks. I wasn't the biggest fan of Luke. And now as I'm getting older and we've been getting more canon content with Luke, I'm actually starting to get back on the Luke train and starting to enjoy Luke more. And again, I love this part in The Force Awakens when Luke uses Force projection to save the Resistance. I think it's so dope. And that's opposite of what we see from Vader and Sidious and how they use their Force powers. Those two only use their Force powers for selfish and malevolent reasons, right? So I think that's someone who's going to be extremely powerful in the light side of the Force. And they've got a very strong connection to the light side of the Force. Their abilities and their strength in the Force is going to allow them to manifest abilities that might not be attainable to others, and they're going to be able to utilize abilities that I think are going to be much more defensive, much more non-violent, and or healing, like we saw in Rise the Skywalker. And I'm not the biggest Rise of Skywalker fan, but I did really like the use of force healing in that movie, because that's something that we've gotten. I don't think, I'd have to double check. I don't think force healing appeared in canon prior to that. I know it's appeared in Legends, but I liked that we got to see force healing in the Rise of Skywalker. It was one of the few things that I did like about that movie. But techniques like force projection, force deflection, which is what we see Yoda use against Darth Sidious. Same sort of thing actually with Jedi when they use their lightsaber to deflect force lightning. Yoda is strong enough where he's able to use his hand basically to deflect Sidious's force lightning. And then Grogu actually uses force deflection in season 1 of The Mandalorian when that flame trooper, I can't remember, is that what they're called? Are they called flame troopers? Whatever they're called, but is basically using a flamethrower to try to kill Grogu, Din, Cara Dune. Grogu uses force deflection to protect them. So I think that's dope. Becoming a force ghost, that's also a very rare ability. It's also an ability that it takes intense training, a deep, deep connection into the force. And basically, to be able to become a force ghost, that technique was only attainable to individuals who completely embrace the light side of the force and lived by a code of selflessness and sacrifice. So that's why we only see a handful of individuals be able to become force ghosts, because it's a rare ability that only so many people would be able to obtain. And I like that. I like that it's going to be something that only a few would be able to utilize. So I think that would be another example of a technique or an ability that someone who is super, super connected in with the light side of the force would be able to utilize that ability. And again, these powers, these abilities, these techniques are completely opposite from what we see the Sith utilize. And they're abilities typically that are allowing the Jedi to thwart the Sith, right? The Sith will say all day long that the dark side is stronger than the light side. I think to some extent, the dark side is almost like if I'm a big sports fan, the dark side to me is almost like using steroids, right? You're going to use some sort of performance enhancing steroids to get an edge over your competition. And that's what I view the dark side as. It's going to allow you to more quickly access a certain threshold or a certain level of force powers or a connection to the dark side. But the light side of the force is going to be much more stronger. And those abilities are usually going to allow the light side force user to thwart the Sith. I mean, even something like becoming a force ghost, the Sith are all about trying to live immortal, but they can never do it. They can't accomplish it, but the Jedi can. Like we see in the Clone Wars, Darth Bane is like a specter. He's like a ghost, and that's pretty much the extent of how the Sith can live forever. They could kind of like haunt things like ghosts, but they can't manifest themselves like a force ghost can, the way a Jedi can. All right. I love this. One of my favorite moments in Empire Strikes Back, right? So I'm going to use this quote. So no matter how powerful the dark side of the force may be, just like my boy Yoda tells Luke, a powerful ally. Now Yoda says a powerful ally the force is. I'm going to say that a powerful ally, the light side of the force is. So excellent question. Bull Run. So yeah, I'm glad that you joined. You mentioned Grogu. Grogu used Force Heal. Yes, that's right. I completely forgot about that. Grogu used Force Heal. Yes, back in season 1, was it episode like 6 or 7? He used Force Heal for our boy Grief. I completely forgot that Grogu used Force Heal. That's so, dude. Grogu is such a great character. So Yoan, welcome to the chat. Says in Clone Wars, the Force Ghost is linked to the evolution of the Jedi's religion. The idea of keeping a consciousness after death is taboo. Well, as far as I know, the Jedi didn't know about that ability. Qui-Gon discovered that ability from the those like sisters, and I'm trying to remember the Wills. I don't think the Jedi knew about that ability whatsoever before Qui-Gon learned about it from the Wills, if I'm not mistaken. And again, Qui-Gon, Qui-Gon is someone who I would say is up there as far as being deeply connected to the light side of the Force, but I don't think he's at a level of Obi-Wan and Yoda. My thought is, I'm gonna bring up midichlorians here for a second. My thought is Obi-Wan, Yoda, Luke, they're gonna have a higher midichlorian count than Qui-Gon, which is why they're able to manifest their bodies as Force ghosts, and Qui-Gon can only manifest. Well, actually, no, I take that back, because Qui-Gon manifested as a Force ghost in Obi-Wan. Completely forgot about that. So you know what? I'm going to throw Qui-Gon out there in that list as well. I completely forgot about my boy Qui-Gon. Yo, I cannot stunt when Qui-Gon appeared, even though I was 90% sure he was going to appear in Obi-Wan. I just started crying my ass off. I was already crying my eyes out, but the moment Qui-Gon appeared, I was just oh, just tears of absolute joy. Freaking love Qui-Gon. I cannot believe I forgot about Qui-Gon. How the hell did I forget about Qui-Gon? But yeah, Qui-Gon is another Jedi that I'm going to throw out there, because I think he would be someone else that's super attuned to the light side of the Force and connected to the light side of the Force. So yeah, Qui-Gon as well. All right. Moving on to our last question. This has been a ton of fun. I'm so surprised by how fast we're moving and grooving here. But for our last question, Botond Hanks, hope I pronounced that right, asks, how did Darth Bane murder the Sith so efficiently and become the only Sith left? So I love this question because I love talking about Darth Bane. He's one of my favorite Sith Lords, one of my favorite characters in Star Wars. So sadly, at this point, we haven't gotten a ton of information about Darth Bane in the current canon. Lots of information about Bane in Legends, and especially about the time leading up to the fall of the Sith and the decades after that. We got a good amount of information about Darth Bane because of the Darth Bane trilogy. Excuse me. But in canon, not so much. So let's dive into what we know about canon. So then, and it's brief, and then I'll answer Botan's question. So what we do know about Bane is that he was born. He hails from Moraband or Korriban, either one, or however you refer to that planet, which is the ancient homeworld of the Sith. He lived during the Dark Age of the Old Republic, which is about 1,000 years before the events of the Clone Wars. He served in the Sith Empire, which at that point was known as the Brotherhood of Darkness, which is kind of similar to his story in Legends, although in Legends, his homeworld was not Korriban. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank on his homeworld's name right now. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I'm sure it'll come to me. But it wasn't Korriban. And just like in Legends, he believed that the issue with the Sith, what was holding them back, was the infighting and the greed. So same sort of thing as Legends. Then, during the Jedi-Sith War, that infighting eventually led to the Sith Order's defeat by the Jedi in 1032 BBY. So very similar to Darth Bane's story in Legends. And at that point, 1032 BBY, the Jedi are almost able to eradicate the Sith. There's still some Sith left after that battle, but they're pretty much almost wiped out from that battle. Bane wound up being survivor, and then organized the eradication of the other Sith, thus making him the only Sith that was able to survive that conflict. We don't know what exactly Darth Bane did to eradicate the remaining Sith that were left, that had survived that conflict. But if we look at Legends, because in Legends, basically what he did. So again, the story for Bane in his canon story is very similar to his Legend story. Some of the beats are a little bit different, but it's very, very similar. The broad strokes are there. Basically in Legends, Darth Bane manipulated Skir Khan, who was like the leader of the Brotherhood of Darkness. He manipulated Skir Khan and the other Sith Lords of the Brotherhood of Darkness to do this ritual to detonate what was called the Thought Bomb. And that ritual, that Thought Bomb, once it was detonated, it would completely destroy any single Force-sensitive... Actually, you know what? Is it just any being entirely that was in its vicinity? I can't remember if it was just for Force-sensitive people. I think it was strictly for Force-sensitive people. I'd have to go back and read the ending of the first Bane book, but I think it was specifically for Force-sensitive people, beings, that the Thought Bomb would only kill them. And that's how the Sith were wiped out. And the only survivor was Darth Bane. Which, can I just say, the name Thought Bomb is like the dumbest name. I remember reading that for the first time. I was like, Thought Bomb, this is such a stupid name. But the idea, the concept of it, I think is pretty sweet. Just that name, I think, is whack. I think it would be dope if canon established that Bane did something similar. He tricked Sith, the Sith that were still alive, to do some sort of ritual that basically led to them being killed. Whatever that ritual might be. It doesn't necessarily have to be a Thought Bomb. I think that would be dope. It would, again, be the same sort of broad strokes that we got for Bane's story in Legends, as long as they don't call it a Thought Bomb, because what a dumb name. But yeah, it wouldn't shock me at all if Lucasfilm establishes in canon that Bane did something similar. He tricked the surviving Sith, had them do something, and then he was able to be the sole survivor because of his manipulation against the other Sith. I think that would be cool, because again, it would be similar to his story in Legends, and I also think it would be kind of on brand for the Sith. I think that would be pretty sweet. I want me some more Darth Bane stories. I can understand Lucasfilm's hesitation to release information on Bane and provide more stories that feature Darth Bane, but I really hope at some point we start to get more and more Darth Bane content and more Darth Bane stories, because man, his story in the 3 Darth Bane novels are so good. Even if I would be totally okay if those, let's say a book or a comic series comes out that dives into Darth Bane's time. I'd be okay if Lucasfilm deviates from what was established in Legends, just as long as we get some Darth Bane stuff. Like I would be okay with that. So Bull Run, let's see what Bull Run says in the chat. It is kind of dumb. Yeah, I'm assuming you're referring to Thought Bomb. Yeah, that name is kind of stupid. Brotherhood of Darkness is sort of canon, just Khan is not. So yeah, the Brotherhood of Darkness is definitely canon. I believe you're correct. I do not think Skir Khan is canon. I don't think he's been mentioned in canon yet. I'd have to double check that. But yeah, the Brotherhood of Darkness is definitely canon. Let's see. Bullrun also mentions the Dyad. Actually, the whole entire thing, Brotherhood was a big part of the Sith Empire. So yeah, I'm trying to remember. Did Darth Bane come up with okay, so yes, that's what it was. So Darth Bane, when he was creating the Rule of Two, he used the doctrine of the Dyad, the basically the force bond of two beings, to model his Rule of Two doctrine, which differs from Legends in the Darth Bane, the first book of the series. Oh, I love this moment. He goes into the valley. What is it? The Valley of the Dark Lords, whatever the name of the valley is on Korriban, where like a bunch of different Sith tombs are and pyramids are. he goes on basically almost like a journey into the waste of Korriban, and he finds a holocron from Darth Revan. And Darth Revan is in the holocron talking about how the Sith of his time, there was a bunch of them, and that was a weakness in Revan's mind. And so in Legends, that's how Bane was able to come up with the idea for the rule of two, because of that holocron. That he found from Revan, which I thought was so dope. Bull Run, so Darth name, I'm not sure what you mean by that. So in Legends, the Brotherhood of the Brotherhood of Darkness did not use the title of Darth. They felt that title, in a nutshell, was part of the problem for the previous Sith empires, was emblematic of the issues that the Sith had, was taking that title of Darth. And in the first Darth, the first was, I think it's called Path of Destruction is the name of the first one. The first book in the Darth Bane trilogy, in defiance of the Sith Brotherhood of Darkness, because he felt that, hey, these Sith are weak. They are going against what it means to be a Sith Lord. I'm going to take up this title of Darth as like an FU to the Brotherhood of Darkness and all these Sith that I feel are beneath me and are weak. That was what Darth Bane's mind was. And so he took the title Darth in defiance of the Sith Brotherhood of Darkness. So instead of being called, Darth Bane, he was simply Bane before taking that title. So the Sith, they would come up with, whatever name that they wanted to once they became a Sith Lord, but they wouldn't have Darth in front of their name. And there is it Corpesh that gives, there's like a pretty sweet monologue and conversation with, I think it was Corpesh, one of the like battle masters of the Sith Academy, and Bane, who tells Bane, because Bane asks him, hey, I'm reading in the Sith archives about these older Sith that use the title of Darth. Why do we not use it anymore? And I think it was Corpesh, I can't remember 100% off the top of my head, basically gives this explanation to Bane as to why the Sith Brotherhood of Darkness decided to get away from that. But yeah, guys, give me more Bane. In a nutshell, give me more Bane. Lucasfilm, I would not say no to some Darth Bane, some more Darth Bane in canon. I'd be all about it. But that's it for questions. This was dope. These were some really fun questions. I've been trying to do the Q&A on like a Tuesday or a Thursday night, but this week my schedule was kind of chaotic, so I didn't want to miss doing the Q&A, so I figured, hey, you know what? Let's do it on Saturday. And this worked out. But I want to know what you guys think about any of my answers to any of these questions. Let me know down in the comments if there was anything that you disagreed, if there's anything that you agreed with me on. Anything you disagreed about my answers, anything you agreed about with my answers, let me know down in the comments. Now is a good time, you knuckleheads. If you have not liked this video, help the channel out by liking this video. If you have not subscribed to Star Wars Transmissions, make sure that you do so. Follow us on TikTok at SW Transmissions. So we've got the weekly Q&A that we do breakdowns for the different Star Wars shows, which I cannot believe. I'm so bummed that the Bad Batch is over, although we haven't been doing breakdowns just for the Bad Batch. We've been doing primarily Mandalorian and mixing in some Bad Batch in there as well. So moving forward now, it's just going to be the Bad Batch. And then, I don't know, Visions is dropping all at once on the day after my birthday, on May 4th. Yeah, May 4th. And then I think Ahsoka is dropping. Like I said, I think Ahsoka is going to drop at the end of the summer. I think. I'm not 100% sure. And then we got videos, shorts that release. So a lot of good stuff from the channel. I keep going back and forth. I'm waiting for some more parts for my computer to come. I'm going back and forth on whether to live stream me building my first gaming PC, because I'm like, I'm going to be swearing and probably super pissed that I don't know if I want to do that on a live stream, but I might. So keep a lookout for that. I was going to do it last week, but then I needed to send some parts back and get some different parts. So I'm still waiting for some of my parts to come in. So that could be something that I might be doing as well. But a lot of cool stuff that the channel's doing. So make sure to subscribe. Keep a lookout for some videos, other live streams, shorts. Got a lot of good things for you guys coming. But with that said, I think I'm going to go and chill with Danny Girl. I've been spending a ton of time today working on videos and stuff, so I might just go and like decompress on the couch, just watch some stuff. Or you know what? I take that back. I'm probably going to play some video games. Who the hell am I kidding? But with that said, my friends, I'm going to get going. I'm going to enjoy my evening. You have a lovely rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you.